Thank you so much for having me here on this special day and at this special moment. It really is a great privilege to be able to speak to you, and I have not taken it lightly. In fact, you might not think that someone that spends most of his time climbing in the Himalayas or hanging off of alpine walls, skiing first descents around the world, would lose any sleep over speaking to a few college students. And in all honesty, and for the record, I've spent quite a few nights laying awake, sweating it out, wondering what the hell I was going to say to you. But today isn't about me, and it's about you. So yes, take a big, deep breath and take it all in. You've worked hard to get here. And let's just take a moment to appreciate all the people who've helped you along, your teachers, your brothers and sisters, your friends, your family, and of course, your parents. This moment, graduation from college, is such a beautiful, liberating, and terrifying rite of passage. For some of you, it is the transition to deeper studies in graduate school, and for many, a transition out of the safety net of academia into the real world. That place with completely bewildering number of options, seemingly impossible choices, pitfalls, opportunities, lack of opportunities, career paths, expectations, Tinder dates. What am I going to do with my life? Well, before you panic, which you will if you haven't already, I just have a few things to say. And please take whatever I say with a grain of salt. Some of this will strike a chord with you, some of this may not, and you may never remember a word I say. But hopefully, some of it will become useful down the road. I am simply here to share a few observations about things I've learned from my own journey. The first thing I want to talk about is taking risks. I know. It's a bit cliched. And I know that some of you must be thinking that this is the last guy on the planet that should be giving advice on taking risks. He spends most of his time in ridiculously dangerous situations. He almost died in an avalanche. He's insane. Partially true. Well, when I say take risks, I don't mean you should go climb high alpine big walls, although it is really fun, nor am I asking you to make jump turns down Everest. So you know, the biggest risk I ever took was to forge my own path. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. My parents were Chinese immigrants, and they were very traditional and very conservative. For most of my childhood and adolescence, as far as I knew, there were 4 career paths. I could be a doctor, a lawyer, a professor, or an investment banker. My parents were librarians at Minnesota State University. They saved their entire lives to put me and my sister through private college. When I finished college, I was under a lot of pressure to pick a traditional career path. Of course, I don't blame my parents for wanting that. I knew that they only wanted the best life possible for me, and I appreciated that. But that path wasn't me. I told them I was going to move west and live out of my car and climb and ski full time. They were absolutely horrified. They would say things like, "Of course we're worried. There's no word in Chinese for what you do." I would call my sister and say, "How are mom and dad doing?" And she would say, "They think they've raised a homeless person." I struggled with a deep sense of doubt and guilt every day, particularly when, living as a dirtbag climbing bum, I would be dumpster diving behind grocery stores. True. But I continued to fight for the life that I wanted. I lived out of the back of my 1990 Subaru Loyale station wagon, baby blue. It wasn't very glamorous, but I was committed to making a life out of climbing, out of skiing, and a life of adventure, something that I was deeply passionate about. It fed something in me, and I lived with passion and was surrounded by people who were passionate about what they were doing. People often assume I knew what I was doing, that the path was clear to me. Hell no. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I wanted meaning and purpose in my life, and I set out to find it by following my heart. And yes, by the way, people always talk about following your heart as if it's easy. Oh, follow your heart. Well, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not easy. It's not always clear what your heart is telling you. You have to examine your intentions endlessly. What are you passionate about? Who is it you want to be? What do you want to do? And most importantly, why? These are big questions. And these are questions I still ask myself every day. Just know that there is always doubt. That is normal. And that is where you have to take the risks to understand yourself and what your heart is telling you, in life and in love. Being willing to walk away from the expectations of others, of society, was the biggest risk I ever took. And I cannot overemphasize how important it was for me to take that risk. It was a commitment to an unknown path that eventually led me to one small opportunity and another, and finally brought me to where I am today. As I was once told by a good friend, you have to commit and figure it out. The next thing I want to speak about is failure. Failure is an interesting word. It has obvious connotations. However, in my experience, I have learned the most profound lessons in life through failure. For most of my career, I have been recognized for my successes. Oh, he skied Everest. He climbed Meru. Well, what people don't talk much about are my failures. And I've had many. When I first looked up at Everest, and the first time I gazed up at the icy flanks of Meru, both times I almost turned around and walked away. They seemed too big, too outrageous to comprehend. I was convinced that I would fail. But I stayed, I grit my teeth, and I tried. And I failed spectacularly. Through those failures, I learned it was okay to be scared, and even good to be scared. I learned about fear. I learned about how to manage fear. I deconstructed the failures, thought about how I would do things differently, how I could do them better, move faster, more efficiently. I learned what I needed to do to come back and eventually ski Everest and to climb Meru. I not only learned how to better prepare for them and train for them and refine my strategies around climbing them, I was able to apply what I learned on other mountains. In essence, those failures gave me confidence to fail more, and in turn to seek bigger goals and objectives in climbing, but also in other aspects of my life, like filmmaking. I learned not to let the objectives overwhelm me, and that just like in the big mountains, it's about the 3 feet ahead of you, putting one foot in front of the other, keeping the bigger objective in mind, but to do the work right in front of you. As my mentor, Rick Ridgway, once said to me while I was starving and feeling completely hopeless on an expedition, "You know how you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." But back to failure. The great irony is that failure is often the best way forward, the best way to succeed. And of course, without failure, there is no such thing as success. And the more you fail, the sweeter the success. I often think the greatest failure in life could very well be never having failed. It means you never dared to dream big, never tried something extraordinary. Learn to embrace failure and be proud of failing, because there is such a thing as failing upwards. Just don't let the failures debilitate you. Learn from them. Let them motivate you. Embrace failure, and in some ways, you will never fail. In my life, I've had many failures, and I am thankful for every one of them. Finally, I want to speak about compassion, empathy, and respect. We live in a time with more forms of communication than any other time in history. And yet, our country and our politics are more divided than ever. I truly believe that without compassion, empathy, and respect, there is no ability to have a true discourse. You will not be able to hear others, and in turn, you will not be heard. Remember, we are all in this together, regardless of color, race, sexual orientation, religion. We are all trying to make sense of this world, struggling to find meaning and purpose, and some of us to get through our own existential crises. In particular, as a graduating class from Unity College, you know we all lose if we politicize the protection of our environment. Yes, there are a lot of perspectives on how to protect our environment, and yes, you need to make a stand for what you believe in. But you also need to have compassion, empathy, and respect to take down the fences between differing opinions and worldviews to have a real dialogue, intelligent dialogue. Right now, we need dialogue that will actually lead to solutions as opposed to deepening the divides. You are the future, and you hold the keys to the preservation and conservation of our environment. You have the chance to make this world a better place, to leave it better than you found it. That is part of your responsibility. How will you use your voice? How will you use your education to find solutions to the environmental issues we face today? Frankly put, if you can't depoliticize the discussion and facilitate intelligent and meaningful discussion about protecting our environment, we're screwed. You. People will have their opinions, and so will you. Be informed. Examine your opinions carefully, but examine the opinions and perspectives of those around you even more carefully. It is only through understanding the bigger picture that you will be able to form an intelligent opinion. Have the humility to recognize you might not always be right. You are graduating today, but learning doesn't end here. In fact, graduating only means you have now been given the tools to think critically and to learn better. Life is about learning, about making mistakes, about shifting your gaze, about growing intellectually and growing as a person. Without compassion, empathy, and respect, you will not be able to truly see the world through different lenses or place yourself in someone else's shoes. And then you will have truly missed some of the biggest opportunities to learn and grow. And on that note, compassion also means being compassionate towards yourself. There is likely no one that is going to be harder on you than you. Remind yourself to take it easy. Be patient. Just as you should treat others with respect and compassion, you need to treat yourself with respect and compassion. We all make mistakes. Learn from them. But don't spend all your time beating yourself up. You can use that energy in much more productive ways. In conclusion, I encourage you to think big when you go forward. The one great privilege you have is the privilege of creating a meaningful life for yourself. And when I say meaningful life, don't sell yourself short. Go big. Never stop reminding yourself that every day that passes is one less day you have to live. So, get out there, take risks, fail spectacularly, be compassionate, empathetic, respectful, be patient with yourself, put one foot in front of the other, create the life you dream of, and become the person you want to be. You have no one to do it for you but yourself. Thank you very much.